sing with love, baby.
For half a century, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, the chairman of the board, and the charming drifter with a smile together, created one of the most dazzling chapters in the history of American music. But behind the bright stage lights, they hid a secret that had never been told. It was a friendship deeper than fame itself, yet filled with things no one dared to speak of: the fateful meeting in Las Vegas, the shadowy ties between music, politics, and power, an affection so close it crossed the usual boundaries, and the tragedy that unfolded when Dean Martin longed to step away from the glitter of fame. Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, two souls once thought inseparable. What did they truly endure throughout their extraordinary lives? It was the late 1940s, a time when Las Vegas was still a desolate frontier. Neon lights had just begun to spread across the Nevada desert, and music echoed through clouds of cigarette smoke. It was there that two icons of American music first crossed paths: Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. At that time, Frank Sinatra was already the voice, a celebrated singer with an air of arrogance and a notoriously fiery temper. Dean Martin, on the other hand, with his effortlessly lazy charm and defiant smile, was still one half of the legendary comedy duo Martin and Lewis. They met one night during a show drenched in whiskey and laughter. Sinatra, famous for his pride and intensity, found himself strangely drawn to Dean's indifference. Dean Martin stood on stage as if he didn't care who was listening, singing as though it required no effort at all. In contrast, Dean was intrigued by the quiet power, the scent of danger that seemed to radiate from Sinatra. He wasn't the talkative type, Dean joked years later, but I had this feeling like I was standing next to a gangster. That brief encounter soon became an anchor in both their lives. A few years later, Frank Sinatra fell into the darkest period of his career. Record labels turned their backs on him. MGM canceled his contract, and his first wife, Nancy Barbato, filed for divorce after a scandalous affair made headlines. Sinatra spiraled downward, nearly vanishing from the spotlight. It was at that moment that Dean Martin, the man known for his laziness and lack of ambition, extended his hand to pull Sinatra out of the abyss. Dean invited him to perform together at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas, a place frequented by the mafia politicians and Hollywood stars alike. Dean didn't just give Sinatra a spot on the stage, he gave him a platform and a second chance at life. From a relationship built on mutual dependence, an empire began to take shape. In the early 1950s, an alliance was forged. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop joined forces, and the Rat Pack was born. Within the group, Sinatra was the boss, the man who held absolute power. A single nod from him could lift someone to the peak of fame or erase them forever from Hollywood. The nightly performances at the Sands Hotel became a ritual for the elite. Sinatra commanded the stage, Martin cracked jokes, Sammy Davis Jr. set the floor ablaze with his dancing, while Lawford and Bishop worked behind the scenes, cleaning up the scandals that inevitably followed. Audiences didn't come merely to watch a show. They came to witness the embodiment of power itself. On stage, Sinatra and Dean Martin were like brothers, weaving a living legend together. Sinatra joked, "Here he is, the most charming drunk in America." And Dean replied, "I keep forgetting I have to sing right after Frank." The whole room erupted in laughter. Yet beneath that laughter lingered an uneasy, unspoken tension. Because behind the bright stage lights, they were playing a very different kind of game. Through Peter Lawford, brother-in-law of President John F. Kennedy, the Rat Pack swiftly became known as the entertainers of the White House, earning special privileges among America's upper class. Sinatra soon grew close to political circles, while the Mays quietly used their performances as a cover to manipulate casinos and tighten their grip on the entertainment industry. The press called them the Kings of Cool. But that word cool was only a sleek disguise, a polished mask hiding both power and sin. Every night, they were not only performers, but also crucial pawns on the grand chessboard of influence. Dean Martin once said a line that sent chills down everyone's spine. "We didn't rule the world, but the world had to listen to us." But Martin wasn't joking, because behind those flawless duets on the Sands Hotel stage lay a network so intricate that even the FBI couldn't penetrate it. Frank Sinatra was infamous for his close relationship with Sam Giancana, the notorious mafia boss of Chicago. Giancana adored Sinatra, not just for his voice, but because the singer had opened the door for the Moya's grand entrance into Hollywood. Dean Martin, on the other hand, was under the protection of the casino tycoons in Nevada, men who understood that as long as Martin kept smiling, guests would stay a few hours longer, which meant millions more pouring into their gambling tables. According to several former FBI agents, the Rat Pack's so-called parties were far more than nights of booze and women. They were gatherings where politicians, businessmen, and criminals mingled freely, where deals were sealed with a handshake. At those meetings, a joke from Dean could smooth a business transaction, and a song from Sinatra could open the door to the political world. Rumors claimed that Sinatra had repeatedly tried to pull Dean Martin into shady ventures, from underground investments to protection rackets. But Dean, sharp and remarkably shrewd, always knew how to stand on the safe side of the line, never allowing himself to be dragged into the swamp of power. He once said, "I don't like to play cards. I just like to stand aside and watch." Yet Dean Martin, the man who always wanted to stay away from trouble, ultimately couldn't escape the enormous shadow of Frank Sinatra. No matter how hard he tried to keep his hands clean, simply standing beside Sinatra was enough to mark him as guilty by association. Because Frank, with his fiery temper and deep ties to the underworld, had been under FBI surveillance for years. And on the list of close associates recorded in their files, Dean Martin's name was always near the top. What was strange, however, was that Dean never left him. Perhaps it was because something existed between them that was stronger than fame itself, absolute loyalty. Wherever Frank was, Dean was there too. Together, they stepped into the dazzling lights of Las Vegas, intoxicated the stage with their performances, and left the hotel at midnight to the cheers of the crowd. During the early years of the Rat Pack, they even shared a vacation home in Palm Springs, a place where the laughter of models echoed through the night and where rumors began to take root. The newspapers of the 1960s wasted no time. Sensational headlines started to appear. Dean and Frank, too close to be just friends. It was said that after every all-night party, when the liquor was gone and the music had faded, only the two of them would leave, accompanied by their two loyal bodyguards. No one ever knew where they went. Of course, no one dared to ask either, unless they had no fear of dying. Frank Sinatra always shielded and protected Dean Martin completely. When Dean was criticized for being late or performing drunk on stage, it was Frank who intervened to smooth things over. "No one has the right to lay a finger on Dean," he once told a reporter, nearly smashing the man's camera in the process. As for Dean Martin, the man known as the most charmingly lazy guy in show business, he rarely showed emotion. Yet once he uttered a line that silenced all of Hollywood. "If Frank calls, I'll come. No questions asked." Reporters from The Hollywood Reporter described their relationship as highly unusual. They shared hotel rooms, often vacationed alone together, and there were nights just the two of them after the Rat Pack's parties had ended. A security guard from the Sands Hotel once recalled Sinatra could lose his mind if Dean got too close to someone else. He controlled Dean like he owned him, and then that jealousy finally exploded. In 1962, backstage at a show in Las Vegas, Frank Sinatra reportedly lost control when he saw Dean Martin speaking intimately with actress Angie Dickinson. No one knew exactly what they said, but according to witnesses, Frank suddenly stood up, hurled his glass to the floor, and shouted something in Italian. Dean tried to remain calm, but only seconds later the two lunged at each other amid screams and the sound of shattering glass. If it hadn't been for Sammy Davis Jr., the only person capable of stepping in the night, might have ended in a full-blown scandal. Everything was swiftly covered up. No newspaper dared to print the details, except for a brief line in Variety Sinatra, and Martin appeared to be keeping their distance for now. But for those close to them, it wasn't just distance. It was the quiet breaking point between two men who once understood each other completely. After that night, they still shared the stage, still smiled, still raised their glasses yet. Behind the lights, part of that sacred bond was slowly dying, foreshadowing greater troubles to come. Indeed, June 8, 1996. Dean Martin's 49th birthday was supposed to be a night of wine, jazz, and laughter. Instead, it ended with the wail of police sirens. At the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills, Sinatra and Martin threw a lavish birthday party, joined by Sinatra's loyal bodyguard Jilly Rizzo, actor Richard Conte, and several women and friends. The atmosphere was lively and noisy until Frederick Rand Wiseman, a well-known art collector sitting at a nearby table, grew irritated. After about 10 minutes of enduring the noise, Wiseman stood up, and in a move few in Hollywood would dare ask Sinatra to keep it down. According to witnesses, Wiseman said mockingly, "You're talking too loud, and your friends aren't any quieter." Sinatra, known for his fiery temper, immediately shot to his feet. A heated verbal exchange erupted. Witnesses later recalled that Wiseman used words deeply offensive to Italian Americans, and Sinatra retaliated with an anti-Semitic remark. Within seconds, the argument turned violent. Some witnesses claimed Wiseman punched Sinatra knocking him down and breaking the leg of a cocktail table. Others insisted it was Jilly Rizzo, Sinatra's bodyguard, who struck the blow that sent Weissman crashing to the floor. Dean Martin, who despised physical fights, stayed on the sidelines and was the first to call the police. When questioned, Dean calmly replied, "I didn't see anything. I just want to go home and sleep." He admitted that Frank had lost control, but carefully avoided saying who had started it. Weissman later underwent nearly 3 hours of surgery for a severe head injury, and doctors weren't even sure he would survive. The media exploded. Major newspapers ran sensational headlines: Sinatra's rage secrets behind the Las Vegas curtain, and Hollywood's most powerful star loses control. Dozens of reporters swarmed the hospital, surrounding every entrance in hopes of catching a single photo or comment. The rumor spread so fast that by the next morning, Sinatra's name was plastered across every front page. Sinatra, instead of staying to face the chaos, vanished from Beverly Hills, reportedly fleeing to Los Angeles to spend time with his young girlfriend, Mia Farrow, while Dean flew to Lake Tahoe to play golf, avoiding all questions from the police. None of them pressed charges, and no one was ever convicted. But the brawl at the Polo Lounge became a silent, yet profound turning point. It exposed the dangerous ties between the Rat Pack and the criminal underworld, while leaving the first visible crack in what once seemed an unbreakable friendship between Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Frank Sinatra, the man of blinding lights and impulsive fury, had gone through several short-lived marriages. Ava Gardner, Mia Farrow, but none of them ever brought him peace. Amid nights of liquor and jazz, Dean was the only one he truly trusted, or at least the only one who made him feel a little less alone. Yet their friendship was never an equal one. Frank was the boss, the man who gave orders and demanded absolute loyalty. Dean was the opposite, carefree, detached, and belonging to no one, not even Frank. That contrast planted the seeds of fracture. One night in 1965, at the Sands Hotel, Sinatra, drunk and irritable, turned to Dean in front of hundreds of spectators and shouted, "You've got no passion, except for that damn bottle." Dean smiled, raised his glass, and coolly replied, "And you're drunk on power, Frank." The audience roared with laughter, thinking it was part of the act. But those who were there knew better. This was no longer just comedy. There was already a deep divide between them. Dean had grown tired of the chaos and noise. He chose golf, light wine, and peace instead. They saw each other less often, but they stayed in touch. Then in 1987, tragedy struck. Dean's son, Dean Paul Martin Jr., died in a plane crash. The F-4 Phantom he was piloting vanished from radar during a training flight over the San Bernardino Mountains. When the rescue team found the wreckage, there was nothing left but scorched debris and a name tag buried in the snow. Dean received the news in the middle of the night. It was said that when the police knocked on his door, he just sat motionless, too shocked to speak. From that day on, he became a shadow of himself. He canceled all his shows, refused interviews, and told his manager, "I don't want to go back on stage." Sinatra couldn't accept seeing his friend collapse. In desperation, he wrote letters, even drove to Dean's house himself to beg him to return. "You've got to come back to me, Dean. We can't live without each other." Sinatra said. Eventually, Dean reluctantly agreed to join the Together Again tour in 1988, more to please his old friend than anything else. But pain can't be hidden under the lights. On stage in Chicago, as Sinatra sang "I've Got You Under My Skin," Dean quietly walked out from the wings and left. The audience murmured in confusion, while Sinatra stood still for several seconds, staring after Dean's fading silhouette. After that night, they never spoke again. Dean withdrew completely from the glittering world. He lived alone in his Beverly Hills mansion, spending his days watching old news footage of his son and drinking quietly. One winter night, when a member of their old circle came to visit, Dean sighed and whispered, "I'm just too tired now." That was the last time anyone ever heard Dean Martin speak about music or about life. In 1995, Dean Martin took his final breath at his Beverly Hills home after years of battling lung disease. Hollywood was shrouded in mourning, but no one was more devastated than Frank Sinatra. When he heard the news, the aging singer, his eyes dim, his voice rough, broke down sobbing in front of television cameras. Sinatra refused to speak at the funeral. Instead, he sent a wreath of white flowers with a hastily written note that read, "Goodbye to the only friend who could make me laugh without a script." No one could have imagined that this would also be the final farewell from the chairman to the greatest companion of his life. 3 years later, in 1998, Frank Sinatra, too, passed away in solitude inside a quiet room filled only with the sound of a respirator and darkness. After years of drifting through the haze of old age medication and fragmented memories, he seemed no longer aware of the world outside. Yet those close to him recalled that in his final days, there was only one song he listened to, "Everybody Loves Somebody" by Dean Martin. A housekeeper remembered. He played that recording over and over for hours. Every time the chorus came on, he'd whisper under his breath, "The world will never understand our friendship, Dino." Two men, one who lived through laughter, the other through music, were finally reunited. Somewhere beyond the stage, beyond the lights, and beyond the roles they once played. What remained was friendship, simple, eternal, and pure, between two souls who made the world believe that sometimes music and friendship truly are the real magic. The final legacy of two musical legends. People often say that music is what makes human beings immortal. But for Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, immortality didn't lie only in melodies. It lived in the way they made the world believe that between glory and loneliness, there still exists something pure called friendship. Their legacy wasn't just the old vinyl records or masterful recordings, but a spirit, a way of life, a philosophy of turning music into the language of genuine emotion. Dean Martin never needed vocal pyrotechnics. He sang with ease, sometimes as if he were conversing, sometimes as if he were quietly laughing at himself. In every note of his songs, one could hear the ambiance of a small bar at the end of the street, the scent of cigarette smoke, and the warmth of long evenings among friends. People loved him because he never tried to convince anyone that he was a legend. He was simply Dean Martin, a man who knew how to savor every moment, whether on stage or in silence. Frank Sinatra, on the other hand, was different. He was the perfectionist artist who transformed every song into a part of his soul. When he sang My Way, the world fell silent. When he sang Fly Me to the Moon, people truly believed he could touch the sky. Sinatra didn't just sing, he performed with his heart, lived within each note, and forged a style that generations after him still strive to emulate. From Elvis Presley and Tony Bennett to Michael Bublé, all were influenced in one way or another by his emotional delivery, powerful yet fragile, sophisticated yet intimate. Both Sinatra and Martin were far more than singers. They were symbols of an era, a time, when music didn't rely on studio effects or million-dollar production, just a microphone, a live orchestra, and real emotion. Dean Martin infused jazz with romance, gentleness, and humor. He made jazz the soundtrack of dates of the first martini, of a shy kiss after the final love song. Sinatra, meanwhile, took music beyond the lounges and into the heart of the public elegant, but not distant classic, yet timeless. He turned loneliness into art, making people realize that sadness too could be beautiful when sung with pride. From New York to Paris, from the casinos of Nevada to the concert halls of London, their music pulsed like the heartbeat of the 20th century. Sinatra taught the world how to live with passion, while Dean taught it how to laugh through exhaustion. One was the symphony of strength, the other, the melody of surrender. And that very contrast made them an irreplaceable duo of legend. What set them apart from all other artists was that they didn't just live by music, they lived within each other's music. Dean Martin once said, "I never have to try. When I'm beside Frank, the music knows where to go." And Sinatra once admitted, "Dean makes people happy without even trying. I've always been jealous of that." Together they built the image of the ideal American man, charming, resilient, capable of love, of failure, and of rising again. They had it all: the charisma of the stage, the spirit of whiskey, and the deep melancholy of true artists' souls. Today, even when technology can replicate voices and stages have been replaced by screens, people still return to the voices of Sinatra and Martin to rediscover something primal: sincerity. In their music, we don't hear technique. We hear humanity. A missed note, a shaky breath, even a laugh in the middle of a song. All of it was real. And that authenticity is what made them immortal. If one could imagine a heaven for departed musicians, Frank and Dean would surely be there beside an old piano, with smoke curling in the air and half-empty glasses of whiskey. Frank would still be adjusting the microphone, Dean would still be cracking jokes, and when the music begins, they would sing together once more. No Las Vegas stage, no blinding audience lights, just two friends singing for each other. And here on earth every time. That's Amore, or Strangers in the Night plays. People can still feel them somehow within the notes, within the memories, within the way this world still wants to love, laugh, and dream the way those two men once did. People used to say, if Frank is the soul of Las Vegas, then Dean is its heart. And perhaps that's the most perfect way to sum up everything they left behind. Sinatra was reason Martin was emotion. And when those two merged, they created the golden age of American music. More than half a century has passed, yet whenever Frank Sinatra's voice echoes, one can almost hear Dean Martin's raspy laughter blending into the melody. Both men are gone, but their legacy remains in every small bar, every dusty vinyl, every quiet night, when the world is left with nothing but the sound of an old song. Somewhere among the stars, Frank is probably still tapping his fingers to a jazz rhythm while Dean smiles softly and says, "You're late again, Frank." Then they sing together, not for the audience, not for fame, but because they once promised to sing until the world stopped turning. Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. Two legends not only of music, but of friendship, humanity, and an era that believed a voice could heal the world. And perhaps that is the greatest part of their legacy. Music was never meant just to be heard, but to be felt, remembered, and lived. As the world changes day by day, the songs of Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin remind us that elegance never goes out of style, and sincere emotion never fades. They may have left us, but their voices still linger through quiet nights in a small bar at the end of the street, where someone still hums softly, "Fly me to the moon," as if time itself never dared to touch them.